Labour's interim leader Harriet Harman joins us now from Westminster. Ms Harman, thanks very much for joining us this morning. There are some fairly damning verdicts, conclusions about Labour's campaign, weren't there, over the weekend? John Prescott calling it disastrous. Peter Mandelson talking about a terrible mistake, a giant political experiment that went wrong. Tony Blair not very complimentary either. Labour's got a lot of sorting out to do, hasn't it?
Well, I think we can all agree, and people will find their own ways to say it, but we can all agree that we lost, and it's very disappointing indeed. It was a very big defeat. I mean, we wanted to be in government. That's what we wanted to be doing at this point. But although, you know, we're not in government, we still have a very important role, which is we are the official opposition. And the government, the Conservatives, have made a whole load of promises, like on the NHS, and like on childcare, like they wouldn't be hitting the disabled, like the economy would recover and everybody get the benefits of it. And there is a really important job for the official opposition to say this is what you promised and to hold them to account. And of course we have to elect our own leader.
Yes, and before you start that job of holding the government to account, surely the Labour Party, is to have any chance of getting back into power again, has got to sort itself out from the bottom up and work out where things went wrong. Where did things go wrong in your view?
Well, I think we have to do a number of things at the same time. You know, we do have to, right from the word go, be keeping a close scrutiny on the government. We're not just going to let them go away and do whatever they want and go back on their promises. I mean, that is our responsibility, to hold them to account. And yes, we've got to have an analysis of why we were defeated in the way we were, and also the different things that were operating in different parts of the country, different things in Scotland than there were, for example, in different parts of England. So we've got to have a proper analysis, not scapegoating and blame gaming, but actually a proper analysis. And we then need, at the same time, we also need to be electing our new leader, and we're doing that on different rules, because Ed Miliband changed the rules. So instead of having 30% trade unions, 30% MPs and 30% Labour Party members, it's now one person, one vote. And so I think that's a very important change. And that's the new rules for electing the leader.
Under those rules, Ed Miliband would never have become Labour Party leader, would he? And you might actually be in power now.
Well, I don't know, because we don't know what the outcome would have been under the rules, because they've now changed. But I think there's a good change in the rules, and we'll have a new leader. But I think that the party members and supporters who will be voting in the election will be looking at the people who are putting themselves forward for leadership and asking themselves, are they actually holding the government to account? Are they really criticising the government if they're getting it wrong on the NHS, or wrong on the economy, or wrong on things like childcare? So I think that the party members will be looking not just at what the leadership candidates are saying about where we went wrong and why, but also holding the government to account now, as well as looking to the future.
Which you've mentioned before. Isn't it important, though, for Labour to be clear on where things went wrong, which is why I'm asking you again where you think things went wrong?
Well, I've answered the question, which is that I think different things happened in different parts of the country. And I know that there was a big concern about what we were saying about the economy, and some people were worried about, you know, the suggestions from the Conservatives that we would go into a coalition with the SNP. But what we need to do is look at the actual facts. And I've commissioned work to look at the facts all around the country as to what happened to different voting patterns. And we will have a political discussion based on the facts. But there's no point.
Isn't it a fact, though? Is it a fact that Labour simply went too far to the left? That's the basis of it, isn't it?
Well, you know, there's different things happened in different parts of the country, and you know, I think it's too early. We know the scale of the defeat. You know, we're not defeatist, but we know it's a very bad defeat. There's no getting away from that. But there is no point everybody anecdoting and jumping to conclusions. Yes, we've got to have a proper debate, and it's my responsibility to make sure that the facts are brought out, and we have a debate which is illuminated by the facts, rather than people just, you know, scapegoating, blame gaming, you know, anecdotes and grinding axes. Right,
let's talk about Scotland for a moment, though. Almost total wipeout for Labour there, and yet Jim Murphy says he's going to carry on as Labour Party leader in Scotland for the time being. Shouldn't he be going?
Well, I think we've got an enormous amount to be grateful to Jim Murphy for, to stepping up to the party leadership at a time when it was already difficult. And I think the roots of the Labour Party's disconnection with people in Scotland go back even to before the referendum, long before Jim Murphy became leader. You know, it was evident really in 2011 in the Scottish parliamentary elections, and you know, we didn't obviously heed the warnings in the right way when we lost in the 2011 Scottish parliamentary elections. So we've got a lot of soul searching to do in Scotland, but again, you know, we've got to make sure that we're speaking up for people's concerns from the position we're in now in this country.
Do you think Jim Murphy, having presided over a historic defeat, should really be carrying on as leader? On that basis, Ed Miliband would still be leader of the party nationally.
Well, I think there's a lot of discussion to be had about
But do you think he should still be leader, yes or no?
I think I want to hear what people in Scotland are saying. I want to hear what Jim is saying. You know, it's not for me as leader of the party right here at the moment to be saying this is what should happen in Scotland. They have had a very big setback in Scotland, you know, very big setback, and there needs to be a period of discussion about how we sort our way forward, and the leadership is obviously going to be discussed as part of that, but I don't want to pronounce on that, except, you know, to say that Jim worked incredibly hard, put everything into it. You know, it absolutely didn't come to the result we wanted, but I want to pay tribute to him at this point.
Okay. Harriet Harman, thanks very much.
We can speak to Labour's Harriet Harman. Ms Harman, good morning to you. And to be clear, are you ruling yourself out?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Monday morning in the office can be pretty depressing for many people, but I think no more so than your good self, having to go in there and get on with business. How do you actually do that today, and what are you going to be doing?
Well, it is bitterly disappointing. There's no getting away from that. And, you know, we were applying for the job of government. We haven't got that job, but we have got a job to do because we are the official opposition. The Conservatives made a lot of promises about protecting the NHS, about making sure that people become better off as the economic recovery goes, and they promised things on childcare, and you know, they've got to keep those promises and not break those promises, and it's our job as the official opposition, as I say, not the job we applied for. We wanted to be in government, but we have a very important job in holding them to account and making sure they keep the promises they made during this election. And we've also got the task of electing our new leader and also analysing where things went wrong, having a debate and a discussion, but in a kind of friendly and respectful, mutually respectful way as we work out what went wrong in the different parts of the country to help us find our way forward.
In a friendly and mutually respectful way, as Scottish leader, do you think that Jim Murphy should go the same way as Ed Miliband?
Well, actually, the rules in relation to the leader in Scotland is the people who elect the Labour leader in Scotland are the Labour people in Scotland. It's not a task for the leader of the Labour Party UK-wide. But I want to pay tribute to Jim Murphy. He stepped up to the leadership at a time when things were already very, very difficult for the Labour Party in Scotland, and he put his heart and soul into it. I mean, the result, you know, is very, very difficult. There's no doubt about it in Scotland. But I want to pay tribute to him, and then it's a matter for the party in Scotland and for Jim himself to work out what the way forward is. But incidentally, for what it's worth, I don't think it was something that happened during the period of Jim's leadership or during the election campaign. If you look at it, the writing was on the wall already in the 2011 Holyrood parliamentary election, where Labour was roundly beaten, but actually perhaps we didn't heed the lessons then, and that was even before the referendum. So I think we've got a lot of analysis to do, but I'm hoping we're going to do it, and I'm determined we do it in a way which is, you know, not just scapegoating and blaming, which is analytical and absolutely determined that we don't let our eye go off the ball of making sure that the government need to be held to account.
Well, the way forward, according to some, may be to actually go backwards. Tony Blair amongst them saying, you got to go centre. Where do you stand in going back to the centre?
Well, I think that this is partly what we need to do by way of the analysis of what happened, because I think there's different things operating in different parts of the country. You know, some people thought we were too much one thing, in another part of the country too much another. So we have really got to look at the facts. And obviously, everybody's got a contribution to make to their sense of what actually went wrong. But again, we've got to be looking to the future, because we are where we are now, and we've got to make sure that we have the right leader who can bring things together, but based on the right analysis. So I've commissioned a real sort of thorough analytical fact-finding thing, so that we go on the basis of the facts as they were in terms of how people voted, and not just on our own personal anecdote and impressions of what happened.
Yes. Well, the new leader is not going to be you, the new deputy leader is not going to be you. Is that you saying that you are prepared to take your fair share of the blame in what went wrong?
Well, I mean, all of us who are in leadership positions, yes, we absolutely have to take the blame for what went wrong and take responsibility for that. And, you know, it is very difficult, because I am very worried about what's going to happen to people with disabilities. I'm worried about what's going to happen in the National Health Service. And, you know, I'm worried about the practical reality of having a government. Yes, they're elected, but you know, we've got to make sure that they do the best that they can and they keep their promises. So yes, I am worried, and not just about us. I'm worried about what's happening in the country.
But I put it to you, should you not be maybe a wee bit more worried at the moment about the influence of the unions in deciding who your next leader is going to be, as they did last time around?
Well, actually, one of the things that Ed Miliband did when he was leader is that he changed the system for choosing the new leader. So it
but
won't
does it not need to be further changed, this whole idea of an electoral college?
Let me just explain. It's actually going to be completely different. As we'd always had it, there was a leadership system whereby there was a third, a third, a third. So it was a third trade unions, a third MPs, and a third of Labour Party members. That system is gone now. It's one person, one vote.
One person, one vote, okay, and that's what will determine things. Anybody you fancy from the list of likelies?
Well, my responsibility as leader at the moment is to make sure that we have a good field of candidates under the new rules, which is one person, one vote. So those rules are going to be scrupulously adhered to. It's going to be a very fair system with the Independent Electoral Reform Society sending all the ballots out. And that also those people who are running for leadership, all the party members and people who are concerned about the situation, will want to make sure that those people who are running for leadership are not actually doing scapegoating and blame gaming. They're actually also part of making sure that we hold this government to account. Yes, we've got to elect our new leader, but we've also got to make sure that the Tories don't think that they've got a free ride at the moment. We've got to be there to scrutinise what they're doing.
Harriet Harman, the acting Labour Party leader, thank you for your time this morning. Thank you.